Hi everybody, welcome to Alicia Dianne Art, and I am your host, Alicia Dianne. Thank you guys so much for joining me and for being a part of this channel and supporting us here at Alicia Dianne Art Company, as big or small production as we may be. But I have some fun drawing for us today. Hope you guys have done some warm-up drawing. Today we're just going to be going through some digital painting actually that I did earlier today, and I want to share that with you. I'm going to switch my screen. And this is actually the illustration that I did. Let me see where I want to start it at. I want to start it at about 3 minutes in. So the first thing, alright, so I'm going to start it right about here. So the first thing that I did, I'm going to explain it to you as I go, is I just use the lasso tool to go ahead and just maybe I should just show you guys some of that. I just use the lasso tool to go around the layers and to cover the whole lioness and the lion cub. And as you can see here, I put the layer on multiply. That's how you can see through to the sketch that's underneath. And I just did that. I went all the way around, and I'm just going to show, I'm going to be explaining, we talk about different things as we go along, and we'll just keep going that way. Usually with wildlife drawing, I've started doing rough sketches and just minimize my Photoshop. Oh, I want to minimize it because I didn't want you guys to see the final result. Oh well. Anyway, you'll be able to. This doesn't really matter that much anyway, because now we're going to be going through the actual process of it. So as you can see here, I do have can you guys see? Okay, that's a little bit better. This is the actual, what is it called? I guess you can call it a mood board, or you can call it vision board even. It's just like what I used for my references while I was painting. And I don't think we missed anything. I just continued going through the lasso tool. So let's go ahead and keep on watching this. Maybe I can make this a little bit bigger. Let's see if that's possible. So you guys can see that really well. I think that's good. It should be pretty much on point with what I'm trying to do. So I just went through and did the color. Let's see. I've been trying to think about things to talk to today, but there's this, with what's going on in our country this week is pretty, I don't know how to explain it other than just shameful, I guess is the only way I can think to describe it. I am pretty upset about what's going on. Let me pull up the man's name because I don't want to mess it up. I should have had I know prepared, but I didn't even know what I was going to be talking about today, but I just want to go ahead and find exactly what I'm trying to, what's in my mind, I guess. So anyway, let's see. Anyway, I don't know. I'm trying to pull it up, but I'm very slow. I'm gonna try and pull it up. As I'm pulling this up, you guys can see I wanted to do a specific time setting, and I want to do it as a sunset, and that's why I did I was pulling from the references, but I want to kind of trying to make it anew at the same time. So I use both photographic reference, and I also use digital painting reference. The photographs are obviously on the right, and the digital paintings are over there on the left. I wanted to kind of see if I could create sort of like a fusion between the two or something like along that lines. Let me see. I also what's I trying to say? I'm sorry. I sometimes like lose my train of thought. Obviously, I think of too many different things at the same time. I think that's one of the things that I do that gets me a little bit loopy. But anyway, I just created a really simplified landscape in the back, just like a mock landscape. I kind of did like just a straight line before, but it didn't look very realistic or convincing as I wanted it to. I didn't want to make it necessarily photorealistic, but I wanted to make it at least have that sense of, okay, where am I? Where are these lines exactly? And I wanted it to feel some way. So I didn't, obviously the photographs that I pulled from and the digital paintings that I pulled from, they are not the exact copy. I just kind of used my imagination to kind of see, like even the photograph I have of the line cut playing with the line as like, it doesn't show the landscape, and it's obviously a different time of day also that, you know, it shows something compared to what I wanted to create. And that's the benefit of painting, is just that you can change it however you want. It doesn't have to be the same time of day. You can change it around. It doesn't have to be even the same location. I could have made them in the middle of New York City if I wanted to. That's kind of I guess the joy of painting. I don't want to sound like Bob Ross over here, but you can kind of do whatever it is that you want to do, and that's kind of like the beauty in it. But anyway, I'm going to pull up. Let's see. I don't want to get it wrong. So, obviously, if you haven't heard now, there's riots in the streets. LA has been put into curfew, LA County, and as well as my city and Santa Clarita. We've both been, I first got the alert about my city, and then I got the alert about the whole county that we are on curfew, basically, from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. because of like the riots. But the riots are for a good reason, I would say. In my personal opinion, because there is really a lot of injustice going on in this country. And the man's name is George Floyd, and he died last week. It was all on camera in Minneapolis, and like the police officer literally took a knee on this man's neck. And anyway, if you hadn't heard, you know why there's riots right now. That's the reason. It's the police brutality. But anyway, I did want to talk a little bit about that, because I do kind of feel like it is not only relevant, even if I had, if it had nothing to do with me or my background or my culture or anything, it's a relevant human issue. I think it's also relevant into like what my focus has been the last, I think, couple of years, loosely, but more, I think, predominant the last, I'd say, 6 months to a year. It's really like I've really taken a focus on learning about African history and learning about African culture, because I have myself been trying to reconnect with aspects of my own culture. And I don't know if you've ever had to deal with anything like that, or even thought about anything like that, but we're not always connected to our own culture, or sometimes we get astray from it. And I just wanted to learn, and the last several years I've been trying to learn about African history, African culture, and it's relevant to me as an African American, because it's so much of our culture has been taken from us, and there's so much that we don't know, that we're not taught in schools growing up. And that's why it's been so important to me to learn, because it affects the way that I see what's happening in culture now, as far as, you know, unequal rights and just people just suffering needlessly. And when you learn more about history, you realize this is not something that's new. You realize this is not even something that started, with slavery. This is something that has been happening for centuries, literally, and it's something that is like been exploited, probably more than ever in the last century. I don't know if that's necessarily true in everyone's mind, but as far as everything that I've learned and I've discovered and things that I've seen through reading and through researching, it really feels like this last century has just been like, I don't know, I guess an explosion of the last several decades put in one or something like that. That's the best way that I can think of it. So anyway, it's caused me to question and think about all the things, all aspects, and that includes career, that includes artwork, that includes my purpose and my mission. And I think if that's something that you ever think about, do you ever think about your career and your focus in art, and if there are equal rights in that area for you, if there are equal platforms available for you, that's something that I think is relevant to talk about. If do you think that if it's something that you've never ever had to think about, maybe that's a really great privilege. And I think all of us here in the United States have privileges, some of us more than others, obviously, but it is something to think about when there are certain things, when I see certain people, even that I went to school with, get opportunities, certain people from different backgrounds getting more opportunities than others, and that might not be the case all the time, but I definitely think that it does happen. And that's just something that I wanted to talk about today. And I know it's kind of like, it's a sensitive subject, I think, for everyone, and I think it makes everyone at least a little bit uncomfortable, but I think these are conversations that need to be had by all of us, especially if we get the opportunity to speak to others online. We can just chat about it. There are places you can go. There are like organizations, NAACP, Women in Animation, I feel like is doing good things for women in animation, but I don't see any focus on women of color or people of color in general. So I mean, these are things that I think about. These are things that I think about when I'm doing my artwork too, and when I organize groups or meetups or things like that. I think about all of these things too, and it's something that I do want to put more focus on, because I think it's necessary, because it's unfair the way that the world is going right now, and the way that it's been going right now. And I know that everyone has their strifes and has their issue, especially with this coronavirus, that it's like stressful for every human on the planet right now. Like just being locked down for 3 months, it's stressful. Like there's no denying that it's a very stressful thing. But is that what we continue to focus on? I don't know. I don't think that that's something that we are able to continue focusing on. We have to kind of leave it to the professionals and trust what they say and how they guide us. But I think it's time to start also like stepping back and saying, okay, am I taking care of myself? Am I taking care of my mind? And what is important to me? Like, what do I see as important? Is the suffering of other people important to me? And it's weird. It's so weird that all this is happening, and I still see like people. I mean, the world goes on, but everyone just goes about their life, doing whatever it is that they do. I mean, I'm not excluded from that. I think we all kind of go about our life and move on, but at the same time, do we go on ignoring what happens, or do we go on like with some intention? And I think it's important to have some intention as we continue and we move on, especially in our art, because artists, we have a different voice. We might not be the ones necessarily, at least at least not me anyway, in the streets writing or picketing or anything like that, but can we say something with our artwork? Can we say something, even if we are like cartoonists and animators and we make silly drawings, can we still say something or make something relevant? Can we make films, or can we make comics, or can we make even video games that have some sort of relevance to what's happening in our planet today? These are things I think about. I don't know about you guys. I gotta take some coffee. I'm a little bit on the mermaid side today. I guess I have my little Ursula mug, and I also have my, I don't know if you saw it, my seashell shirt. I got my clams on today. But sorry. Alright, so finally I finished doing the line work. And I just started going and putting in some more local color, making it a little bit more dimensional rather than just a completely flat drawing. I wanted to add some depth to it. And so I went ahead and started adding the shades in areas where I felt like, and you know, you can see like all of my loose drawing, even though I put it on a separate layer. And let me see, I want to explain it to you really quickly. I created a clipping mask. You guys can go into YouTube and Google like Photoshop clipping mask, or ways to use a clipping mask. Photoshop actually has their own YouTube channel, and they actually created a video about clipping masks. So that is one of the things I use, so that my shade, just so that the shade color would not go outside, excuse me, of my base color. So this all still local color, but I just wanted to make sure that my shade color did not, and my tints and all that stuff, and my tones didn't go outside of, my variations in color didn't go outside of the actual lion. So I didn't want to have like tan lion fur in the grass. I wanted it to stay in the lion. So you see, if you look on the layers and you see the little layer that's kind of sticking out, that's what that is. So I did that, and I'm just playing around with the different colors here, just going back and forth with my reference. But this is this lioness reference over here, and I didn't go out of the stream, but I just started to slowly and surely just keep on making it closer to that color there. I wanted to get it, you know, I wanted to get it right. It's just funny because I listen, you know, like, speaking of being relevant too, like having your artwork be relevant, I've really had this, like I talked about before, I've been working on this project for the last while, sort of as like a side series to my comic. It's just this, which is JD's story. It's 1,000 lines for Kenya, and I've just been doing all of these different line illustrations. I must have maybe about 750 different lions at this point, but this is one of them, and I'm coloring it for the first time. And one of the things that I think about with relevance, and how does that work with wildlife, you know, how does that work with your animal drawings? And I noticed that, you know, I do find a lot of interest in lions in particular. I do find a lot of interest in African animals. I mean, those are like some of the main animals that I focus on. So I mean, that doesn't have to be what you focus on. It could be animals that are symbolic to your culture. Like for me, lions are symbolic to my culture. I mean, you see like an African lion, and the first thing you think about is Africa. Like you can't not think of Africa and not think of pride. The word pride, the word tried is like the only that's the only place in the animal kingdom where that word is used is with lions, and it's just metaphorical and it's symbolic, and I just think it can be like, it can be something that you use to express, like, think of ways that you can use different animals that fascinate you or that you admire, and how that relates to your storytelling. Lions are one of the first animals you see, or living things that you see in the comic book that I created. Actually, it's the second living thing that you see in my book. The first thing that you see is this bird. It's actually this little I want to show you like the first sketch that I did. Because I think it's kind of neat in storytelling, as far as storytelling goes. Okay, so this is it. It's this little like silly drawing of this bird on a tree. But what it's called is a gray-throated barbet. And a barbet is a bird. It's a small little bird that does live in the region of the area that I'm focusing on, which is based off of Kwale in Kenya. And let me see if I can find like, I'm gonna see if I can, I don't want to block the painting process, but I want to show you guys if I can find it. If you search in like gray-throated barbet, you'll be able to see photographs almost exactly like what I was using, because I used different references that I saw on Pinterest of these birds. Let's see if it actually pops up for me. Like these little birds, they're like so interesting looking, I think. They have a lot of like little personality. I don't know. But I don't know, I just felt like it was just like, there's something about birds. They have that sixth sense. They're kind of like nature's alarm clock. They warn all the other animals around them of when danger is near. They are so intuitive and so instinctual. I really call them nature's alarm clock in every sense, because I think that's kind of what birds are. But it's not a negative thing at all. It's like it's a really cool thing that they're kind of like the overseers of all of us. It's birds. So the first thing you see is a bird. It kind of does alert to like something different is about to happen, and that's exactly why I have that bird as the first thing that you see, because the bird is intuitive. The bird knows what's going on, and the bird is like, something's about to happen, and something does. And then the second creature that you see is this lioness who sees the bird flying off. And I like that it's the female that noticed her as well. The male is still asleep, which is kind of like real life in different sense. But I'm saying like it's metaphorical, and even though it's very small little things, like you can use small things to tell stories, and that's kind of cool, is that you can use little things as metaphors for you. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that another artist uses as a metaphor. I don't know that any other artists are using birds as like a warning or like a alert, but because birds are alertive and intuitive animals, I wouldn't be surprised at all. But that was what I used, so maybe it's something that you can use, maybe something else that you can use that you feel like tells the story that you're trying to get out, and tells it the way that you want to tell it. So anyway, I'm gonna go back to my lion painting, because now it's getting more realistic. Like now the colors are really looking like local lion colors. Like they're looking a lot more like that photograph, and it's just like going little by little and just kind of painting. And I did all like my lion like different, I guess, variations on the same level and the same layer for the female, I did all her colors on one layer, and then for the cub, I did all of his layers on another layer. His or her, I don't know. The cub is the male. But in my mind, I think it's her son. And let me see. How else can I describe this? But I think, like for me, like with painting, for me the painting is all about the drawing more than anything. Like I'm still, like I told you guys before, I'm still new at digital painting. I feel like, in my mind at least, because I haven't reached, like, I guess the level that I aspire to as far as painting digitally, but I still am like trying to use as much instinctiveness and really trying to use as much really trying to like let the drawing shine, like let the drawing kind of say what it needs to say and not like overpower it with the painting. I told you guys before, like I was like my biggest issue before with digital painting was just making things way overly saturated and making things way like too much with the color. But I'm getting better at it now. I'm getting better. It's slowly but surely. It's learning from other people. Like I have these references, like those are Aaron Blaze's paintings that I use as reference on the left side there. It's my pointer on the left. These oops, what did I do? Did I mess it up? Okay, so what did I do? Alright, anyway. What am I doing? I'm just gonna leave it alone. I don't want to mess it all up. Oh my gosh. I don't even know. I was trying to like show you guys, but anyway, hopefully you guys can see the references anyway. I think so. Alright. Anyway. I want to see, I wonder if I should pull some of these forward. I was trying some different colors, let's see, with the color wheel to, so I tried like with my lady first, my lady lion, and that wasn't really exactly how I wanted it to go, so I was like, alright, let me do the grass first. And that was my next step, is to just get some of this grass color, change like the base color of the grass. And notice I use like the complementary colors. I mean, it's kind of like what nature would do anyway, but nature has so many complementary colors in it anyway that it's like, it's kind of hard to mess it up when you actually do focus on nature. But blue and orange are complementary. If you guys look at the color wheel, you see that blue and orange are complementary colors, and I wanted to use those. Let's see. Alright, so anyway, let's see. I picked this blue color. I'm just going to leave it. I might skip ahead some of these. So I started to create a new layer for the shadow, and I just went ahead and just colored in all the different areas. I went over some of them, I went back on some of them, just coloring all of the shade in, and I just used this nice brush. when you see that jump in the color, it's because I started with one and then I made it a little bit transparent, which I probably didn't necessarily need to do. I made the opacity 74% here, and so I did most of her body in shadow, almost all of it. And so let's see, here's a new layer, and now I started to add light. So I made a whole new layer. I used a different brush. It's the same brush that I was using for shadow. I think it's the same brush I was using for shadow. It's a different brush that I was using to color to add the lines. So let's see. I just added spots where I thought that the light was hitting. I tried to picture that the light was in front of them. Even though I did like some different things with the sky, I still wanted to, and I might change that later in my final illustration. I'll post that on the internets. I'll post the final illustration. But let's see, yeah, everything is on normal right now. The layers are normal. I do go over it a little bit later with an overlay. Overlay is like you can choose to either make your layer overlay. If you look over here in this section, it tells you, it asks you what kind of layer you want to have. Right now it's on normal. If you do multiply, it will be see-through. If you do overlay, it'll be like it makes it like a glow. Like look at my my desktop. I have these flamingos on my desktop, and there's like this layer, this glow. If I wanted to do a painting of this, it's actually a photograph, but I want to do a painting of it, it would be like overlay. I would use like a light yellow and paint that with overlay. It would give me this nice glow effect. So I continue to go over it, painting just spots where I feel like the sun would cast over. And it's not perfect, and it doesn't need to be. It still is like, I feel like it's giving the illusion of that glow, which is what I wanted. Just the illusion of light. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like I said, I'm still pretty new to like digital painting in this way. And I don't have an exact reference. I have references that are similar. I have reference of what's happening, but I wanted to use the photograph just as like, what does this look like, but it doesn't tell me how it's lit. So I'm taking one photograph and I'm lighting it totally in a new way. I have different examples, but I don't have an exact reference. So a lot of it has to be sort of like me imagining how it would happen, how the light would hit her. And now I'm going over it. Now you can see in this section right here, it's on overlay. And everything else is still 100. I could have changed my flow or my opacity on the brush to make it less, but that's all 100 still. If I was making it like more of a traditional type of painting, I probably would have been able to go ahead and take the flow down to maybe 34% or something like that. And if you have questions at all about like any part of this process, like this painting process, feel free to leave a comment or message me on social media. But this was pretty fun. Let's see. I like that most of the cub is in shadow, but just like his paws are coming out from the light. like little parts of him that are coming out. Oh, it's pretty nice. Here, I started adding some whiskers. If you look at like the reference, you see like the whiskers on the lion are just completely white. They just stand out as just like these little white hairs that stick out. And I think at this point I start to go ahead and make some more depth in my shadow, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. Just making the shadows, giving the shadow more variance, so it's not just one value, I guess, that's in shade. It goes in, the closer it is to the light, it gets lighter, and the closer it is to the ground area, it gets darker. So I wanted to play with that, make it look a little bit more realistic in that sense. So it's not just like, you know, flat. I wanted to even give it like a bit of volume, even though like these parts are in the shade. And definitely wanted to let the forefront figure, that cub figure, stand out from the mom, the one to look like it's just like totally flat. So you can see here, I need this lighter part of the cub. I made this lighter part of the cub against this darker area of the mom, so that it wouldn't be like too blended in. Just give it like different variants. Even I didn't think about it, that lion cub would be casting a shadow on the mom. So I have to go back and do that. I don't think I did that. Yeah, the lion cub, the way I have him in this lighting, would be casting a definite shadow on his mom, because I have the light like coming from the front, and like, but it's setting, so it's like just this part of them is being lit. But you have to, that's one of the things that I learned like over the last couple of weeks when I've been taking some digital painting classes. I've done a lot of traditional painting, things like that in the past. I've even done a lot of digital painting, but I couldn't translate for some reason. It was hard for me to translate what I learned in traditional painting to what I learned in digital painting. I mean, some of it was there, but there was a disconnect for me, and it was just like, I know how to paint like traditional, but getting that same effect on digital was hard for me. And I don't know if that's anyone else has had that struggle, but that was definitely a struggle for me. It's something I'm still working through, believe me. But it's gotten easier. It's gotten a lot easier. I'm starting to think about the things that I think about in my traditional painting a little bit more now, because usually I don't know, it's something, I don't know what it is about digital. It's something that was like a block for me. It was hard for me to like get across the same, like think about it in the same way, or like, because I usually do quick digital painting. When I do a traditional painting, it's usually like takes me a while, and more, it feels more of a need to get it to a finished state. With digital painting, it feels like I can do a lot of rough passes or do a lot of like loose drawings. So I'm trying to still figure out how to make final finished digital drawings, and I'm getting there. It's just a process. And as you can see there, I was trying out different foliage brushes. I wanted to add some foliage for my painting, and just add some different like just give some texture to the background. And so I did that with the different foliage brushes. And I'm going to show you guys as I go through just adding that. Adding lots of texture around. So I use like different colors. I'm going to go through this a little bit quicker. I added that first color, and then I added, swish it up, use the same brush, just adding different I made it a little bit more blue as it got closer to the lion. So a little, because things tend to fade out in the distance, things tend to like, the look of things tend to fade in the distance. Okay. Looks like I also added, I wanted to get some of the sky color. To get some of the sky color in there. Not too much, but just like where the light is hitting. Got a little bit of brown, just to add some variance and some. And now I'm seeing there's these, now that I see like the smaller, I see there's these lines that are kind of coming across. These here, you see that? These lines. I want to get rid of those. Rather than looking at them like this, I can see that they've created like these weird lines. I'm going to have to do something about that. Maybe I'll do a blur on the grass so it's not so obvious. And then add some more layers. Let's skip ahead a little bit. Now I'm trying to, I guess, figure out that sunlight. Which I think I'm going to change because I don't want it to be that the sun is coming from that area. So it wouldn't make sense because then it would be lit, I think, differently. I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm going to have to fix that. Let's see. And also what I did was add a new layer, and I did the gradient this time with I changed it, I had it normal this time. Okay, so this one is normal, but I think I tried the background when I was doing the sun layer. I did it as an overlay so that it would glow a bit. Even though I'm going to change that, I just wanted to let you guys know, like, that's something that you can do. You can make that sun, like, give it like you can make the gradient an overlay so that it does have that same, like, glowing effect that it would if you were, you know, seeing like a photograph of something that's glowing in real life. I don't know what I'm doing. Well, I think I'm adding some light to her nose. You know what I think I'm gonna do? I think I'm gonna make the top. You guys still see me? This is the Photoshop. I'm gonna take this layer off. Well, I think that's all for this. I don't know if there's anything else. What else did I do? I think I played with the background a little bit. I think I'm going to make the sky a bit darker. Alright, so that's it for what I did previously. I'm gonna open up now Photoshop if I can. And I'm gonna make a couple changes quickly. So let's see. Mainly what was bugging me. If I can find it. I didn't name my layers, which you should probably do. At least most of the time. No. Maybe it's down here. Alright. So I'm going to delete that layer with the sun because I don't want the sun coming from there. And I think I might even turn that off. Yeah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this sun here and I'm going to make Alright, maybe I can do it on this. Let me see. I want to get like a sky color, but like more on the purplish side. Let's see if we can do it. It's really make it look like the sun is already almost gone. There, I think that's right. And let's see. Take the opacity down a little bit. Like 60. And what else? There's something else I want to do. Let's see, I'm gonna also go back to this layer and I'm gonna add in that shadow I was talking about. the lion cub is creating over his mom. Past the foliage brushes. And let's see. And let's see, I'm going to take this dark color. Oh yeah, there's that lag. You do get the lag when I draw a lot. That's why I pre-record these, so that we don't get the lag. But I just wanted to show you guys, you know, that you can create that shadow. Think about the things in your pieces that are casting shadows. Whether that's another animal or a piece of grass or whatever it is. I might even fade it out a little bit so it's not so harsh. Yeah, I'm going to do that and make it, I don't want it to be too harsh, but I want it to be that you can clearly see it as a shadow being cast by the sky. You see that? And maybe the paw is casting a shadow on her side there. You can see that shadow back there of his paw. What happened there? But that feels more, that feels better. It feels like, okay, he's not just like, you know, floating in the air, it actually affects her. And I feel like even he will create another shadow. I can get this size right. Just a little bit of shadow behind his little fingerlets, I guess, or whatever. White color. But I think feathers would also create a bit of a shadow there. That's better. It's not perfect, but it feels more. Okay. Well, I guess that's going to be it for today. But I want to thank you guys so much. We talked about a lot of things. We talked about, you know, things that are in the news and things like that. It might not be easy to talk about, but it's important. And we talked about how you can, you know, even if you're not necessarily a protester, you may just want to like include some opinions or symbols for peace or justice or equality in your art. Even if you're making art about animals, even if you're making art about whatever, you can still find ways to incorporate culture, find ways to incorporate yourself and a bit of your voice into your art. So I hope that helps, and I will thank you guys for joining me for this first day of June 2020. The world's not over yet, so let's keep going. I will see you guys next week for cartooning animals, and until then, be grateful, live balanced, love balance, and be yourself. See you next time.